Welcome back, everybody, to Anatomy. So we're going to be starting Chapter 10, and this first video is going to go over Handout 10A, but we've got some things in the PowerPoint to cover first. So I'm going to go to our PowerPoint, and we're going to kind of work through this PowerPoint, at least the beginning of it, together. So first of all, we want to talk about some of the muscle functions. And the muscles have several functions, some obviously that you know, others that you may not be completely aware of. So the first thing is the muscles are going to provide body movement. It's going to help maintain posture. Your muscles in your rib cage are going to provide better respiration, along with your diaphragm, which is a muscle that's required for respiration. When you shiver, your muscles contract and create body heat. Your muscles, like in your heart, are very good at communicating with one another. And then smooth muscle are going to be constricting and moving organs like your stomach or your uterus or your esophagus, as well as blood vessels. Arteries and veins also can constrict and dilate due to muscle contractions. And then, of course, we have our heartbeat, which is another type of muscle, and your heart beats due to muscle contractions. Now, there are some general principles to muscles that are good to know, and I want to cover these just so we kind of have an idea of how muscles work. So some of this is stuff we've covered in lab, and other things we didn't get to. Remember that all muscles, or skeletal muscles I should say, are attached to bones via tendons. So these tendons attach the muscle to the bone. Muscles all have an origin and a head. Remember, an origin is that muscle part that attaches to the more stationary bone. The insertion is that part of the muscle that attaches to the more movable bone. So we have an origin and an insertion. In between the origin and insertion, we have a belly of the muscle. The belly of the muscle is just that largest portion between the two. Now, muscles can be synergists working together, like all of your hamstrings work together. Synergists have a prime mover. That's a main muscle that does most of the work. And then we've got these synergist muscles all acting together, so we call them agonists. Now, the opposite of synergist is antagonist, and antagonists are going to be muscles that are working in opposition. So like your quadriceps are antagonistic to your hamstrings, or your biceps brachii are antagonistic to your triceps brachii. We also have some muscles that are stabilizing joints, and none of these are on our lab list, but we call those fixators. So they stabilize joints and move across a joint and the prime mover of the muscles. Okay, so next we've got some properties of muscles. Muscles contain or provide us with certain attributes or properties. All muscles follow these properties. So all muscles are excitable. So they actually can respond to chemicals and move. All muscles are conductible or have conductivity, which means they can move electricity through them. All muscles contract. So we shorten the muscle and contract it. That's what muscles do. Muscles can also extend. So not only do they contract, but they extend, and they're kind of like rubber bands. They can go back to their original position without damaging anything. And then muscles have elasticity. So we can move them and they always return to their original shape. So these properties are unique to muscle tissue. Okay, now that leads us to our first handout, which is Handout 10A. And Handout 10A is really simple. There's actually not a lot to write in it, but it's going to show us our different muscle types. We actually have 3 types of muscle. All right. Oops, I got this upside down. Let's get this right side up here. Gotta get on here, get it right side up. There we go. Okay. So we've got 3 different types of muscles that we want to mention. And muscle tissue of these 3 types all have those properties. Okay, so get rid of me. And the first type of muscle is skeletal muscle. Skeletal muscle is the muscles that we're learning in lab class. They attach to bones. They can sometimes attach to skin or other fascia, but mostly to bones. They contain what are called striations. So they're striated with light and dark bands, and you can see that. We have these stripes. And we'll talk about what those stripes are a little bit later in this chapter. Skeletal muscle is under mostly voluntary control. You control your skeletal muscles. So you can consciously send a signal to your skeletal muscles to do a certain job. And something that's really interesting is skeletal muscle is all multinucleated. So a muscle cell in like your biceps brachii or your rectus abdominis have more than one nucleus, which is kind of a unique trait in humans. We don't really have a lot of cells that are multinucleated, but these skeletal muscle cells are multinucleated. So that's pretty cool. All right, the second type of muscle is cardiac muscle. And cardiac muscle is a little bit similar to skeletal muscle in some respects, but in other ways it's different. Cardiac muscle is also striated, so it's got these stripes, just like our skeletal muscle. So they're both striped. Cardiac muscle is obviously under involuntary control. We don't control our heartbeat. And so the cardiac muscle is under involuntary control. It's also branched. So unlike the skeletal muscle that has cells that are unbranched, cardiac muscle cells are highly branched and form kind of a network. They also have the ability to be autorhythmic. They can conduct electricity, and they can do that on their own, so that we call that autorhythmic. They have a built-in pacemaker that conducts the electrical impulses. Now we're going to cover most of the cardiac muscle in chapter 20. This chapter 10 is mostly going to be skeletal muscle. Chapter 20 is cardiac muscle. And then we sprinkle in a little bit of the third type of muscle called smooth muscle, kind of in chapter 10 as well. Smooth muscle does not have any striations, all right? Non-striated. It's also involuntary, and it is the muscles that are in your organs. So any organ that contains muscle, blood vessels, your stomach, your uterus, your esophagus, your intestines, any muscle in an organ is a smooth muscle. So they are also in your skin. They attach your hair to your skin follicles, and it says they are in the walls of hollow organs. So we are full of hollow organs. Our digestive system, our reproductive system, our circulatory system all contain hollow organs with smooth muscle. So these are the three muscle groups, and we're going to be talking about these throughout this test number 3 material. So we're going to move on, and this chapter 10, like I said, is going to mostly cover skeletal muscle. And then we get into chapter 20, we cover the heart muscle, and then we'll have our test number 3. So keep that in mind. Keep up with all the online material, and I wish you the best. I'll see you soon.